The December wind howled through the cracks in the walls like a wounded coyote, bringing with it the bitter taste of Kansas winter. Clara Hartley pressed her back against the rough wooden door, her hands trembling as she clutched the threadbare shawl around her shoulders. The knock came again, harder this time, rattling the rusty hinges. "Open up, Mrs. Hartley. We know you're in there." She recognized the voice. Jacob Morse, the man who'd bought up her late husband's debts from the bank, the kind of man who fed on misfortune like a buzzard on carrion. Her fingers found the worn wedding band on her left hand, twisting it nervously. Thomas had been dead 3 months now, taken by fever, leaving her nothing but memories and a mountain of IOUs. The door shuddered under a heavy boot. "Your husband's debts don't die with him, woman. The law's clear on that. What he owed, you owe." Clara's throat tightened. She had nothing left to give. The drought had taken the crops. Thomas's illness had eaten through their savings, and she'd sold everything worth selling. Her mother's china, the good plow, even Thomas's Sunday boots. All that remained was this broken-down cabin and the dress on her back. The door burst open, splinters of wood scattering across the floor. 3 men pushed inside, bringing the cold with them. Morse stood in front, his greasy beard catching the dim light from her oil lamp. Behind him lurked the Cutter brothers, Frank and Will, known throughout the county for their cruel ways and quick fists. 30 days I gave you," Morse said, stepping closer. His breath stank of whiskey and tobacco. 30 days to pay what's owed. Time's up. Please." Clara straightened her spine, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "I need more time. The seamstress in town. She said she might have work." Frank Cutter's laugh was ugly. "Seamstress work? You'd need to sew gold thread to pay what you owe." $200, Morse said, pulling a crumpled paper from his coat. "Plus interest. Makes it near 300 now." Clara's heart sank. It might as well have been 3,000. "I don't have it. Then we'll have to discuss alternatives." Morse's eyes traveled over her, slow and deliberate, like a man appraising livestock. "Widow woman like you, still young, still got your looks about you. There's establishments in Dodge City that'd pay good money for—" "No!" The word came out sharp, desperate. Will Cutter moved faster than she expected. His hand caught her across the face, sending her stumbling backward. She tasted copper as blood welled from her split lip. The floor rushed up to meet her, and she landed hard on her knees. "Mind your manners when Mr. Morse is talking." Will growled. Clara tried to push herself up, but Frank's boot pressed down on her shoulder, keeping her on the floor. "Maybe we should take a down payment right here," he said, his voice thick with suggestion. "Show her what's waiting if she don't find that money quick." Morse pretended to consider this, stroking his beard. "The law does say a debt can be worked off in trade." The sound of hoofbeats cut through the night, growing closer. The men paused, heads turning toward the door. The horses stopped just outside, leather creaking as someone dismounted. A shadow filled the doorway. The man who entered had to duck his head to clear the frame. He wore a long duster coat, trail-worn and dusty, and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face. But Clara could see his hand resting easy on the Winchester rifle he carried. Could see the way he took in the scene with one quick glance. "Evening," the stranger said, his voice deep and steady as bedrock. "Seems I'm interrupting something." Morse recovered first. "Private business. Friend. Best you move along." The stranger stepped fully into the light, and Clara saw his face clearly for the first time. Weather-beaten and sun-dark, with lines carved deep around gray eyes that had seen too much. Maybe 35, maybe 40. The frontier aged men hard. A day's growth of beard covered a strong jaw, and a thin scar ran from his left temple to his cheekbone. "Can't do that," he said simply. "See, I don't much care for men who hit women. Makes my trigger finger itchy." Frank Cutter's hand drifted toward his pistol. The stranger's Winchester shifted slightly, the movement so small it might have been imagination. But Frank froze. "You know who we are?" Morse demanded. "Know enough." The stranger's eyes never left Frank's hand. "Know you're in this lady's home uninvited. Know there's blood on her face. Know that's enough for me. This woman owes me money," Morse said, voice rising. "Legal debt. I got papers. Then take it to the sheriff come morning. Right now, you're leaving." Saw Will Cutter spat on the floor. "3 of us, 1 of you. And you ain't even drawn that rifle." The stranger smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Won't need to. See, my horse outside? That's Brutus. Smartest animal you ever met. I don't walk out of here in 2 minutes. He'll head straight to the Turner Ranch. My boys'll come looking. All 12 of them. Good boys. But terrible temper when someone hurts their boss." Clara's heart jumped. Turner Ranch, she knew the name. Elias Turner, the widower who ran cattle on the land north of town. Kept to himself mostly. Came to town for supplies once a month. She'd seen him at the general store, quiet and watchful, buying flour and coffee while his young son played with the penny candies. Morse's eyes narrowed. "Turner, is it? You're a long way from your spread. Not so far I can't hear a woman in trouble." Elias Turner's voice carried the quiet authority of a man who didn't need to raise it. "Now, we doing this easy or hard?" For a long moment, nobody moved. The wind rattled the windows, and somewhere in the darkness, a coyote howled. Then Morse jerked his head toward the door. "This ain't over," he told Clara. "The debt stands. You got 1 week to figure something out, or I'll be back with the sheriff and a warrant. And Mr. Turner won't always be around to play hero." The 3 men filed out, Frank bumping Turner's shoulder as he passed. Turner didn't move, solid as a fence post. Only when the sound of their horses faded into the night did he lower the Winchester. Clara pulled herself to her feet, one hand pressed to her bleeding lip. "Thank you," she managed. Turner set his rifle by the door and crossed to her in 2 strides. Up close, he was even taller than she'd thought. His hands were gentle as he tilted her face toward the lamplight, examining the damage. "Need to clean that cut," he said. "You got any whiskey?" "No, there's water in the pitcher." He wet his handkerchief and dabbed at her lip. She winced, but didn't pull away. His hands were calloused from years of rope and leather, but his touch was careful. "They'll be back," Clara said unnecessarily. "I know." He stepped back, studying her with those storm-gray eyes. "You can't stay here. This is my home. This is a house," he corrected. "A home's where you're safe. When's the last time you ate a proper meal?" Clara couldn't remember. The question somehow broke through her defenses in a way violence hadn't. She felt her eyes burn with tears she refused to shed. Turner moved to the stove, lifting the lid on the empty pot. He checked the cupboards, finding only a heel of stale bread and some moldy potatoes. His jaw tightened. "Get your things," he said. "What? Whatever you can't bear to leave? You're coming to my place tonight. We'll figure out the rest in the morning. I don't even know you." He turned to face her fully. "Name's Elias Turner. I run cattle on 800 acres north of town. Lost my wife to childbirth fever 2 years back. Got a boy, Samuel, 6 years old. I got a spare room, clean sheets, and hot food. That's all you need to know tonight." Clara wanted to refuse, wanted to hold on to the last shreds of her pride, but she thought of Morse's eyes, of the Cutter brothers' hands, of another night alone in this cold, empty house. "Just for tonight," she said. Turner nodded. "Already moving to bank the fire?" "My wagon's outside. Take your time." Clara gathered her few possessions, her mother's Bible, Thomas's watch, a daguerreotype of their wedding day, some clothes, everything fit in a single carpet bag. As she packed, she watched Turner from the corner of her eye. He moved through her house with quiet efficiency, checking windows, dousing lamps. When he picked up the broken door and propped it back in place, she saw him frown at the damaged lock. "Ready?" he asked. She took one last look around. This was where she'd come as a bride, where she'd nursed Thomas through his final days, where she'd learned to be alone. Leaving felt like betrayal and salvation all at once. Turner helped her into the wagon, his hand steady on her elbow, As they pulled away, Clara didn't look back. Behind them, the cabin disappeared into the darkness, along with the life she'd known beside her. Elias Turner drove in silence, the Winchester across his knees. He'd offered her his coat, and she pulled it tight against the cold. It smelled of leather and wood smoke and something indefinably safe. "Why?" she asked finally. He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because nobody should be alone when the wolves come calling. The wagon rolled on through the night, carrying her toward an uncertain tomorrow. But for the first time in months, Clara Hartley felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. The Turner ranch emerged from the darkness like a promise kept. Clara had expected something grand. A man who could speak of 12 ranch hands surely lived in splendor. Instead, she found honest simplicity. A sturdy 2-story house of hewn logs and clean lines, smoke rising from the chimney like a beacon. A vegetable garden slept under winter mulch, and beyond it stood a well-maintained barn and corral. "It's not much," Turner said, perhaps reading disappointment in her silence. "It's beautiful," Clara replied, meaning it. After months in a dying house, this living, breathing homestead felt like stepping into sunlight. Turner helped her down from the wagon, steadying her when her legs trembled from cold and exhaustion. A dog bounded up, a shepherd mix with intelligent eyes, sniffing her skirts with careful interest. "That's Moses," Turner said. "He's particular about strangers, but seems he likes you well enough." The front door opened, spilling yellow lamplight onto the porch. A small figure appeared, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Papa?" "Samuel." Turner's voice gentled in a way that made Clara's chest tight. "What are you doing up, son?" "Heard the wagon." The boy's attention fixed on Clara with the directness only children possessed. "Who's she?" "This is Mrs. Hartley. She'll be staying with us tonight. Mind your manners." Samuel studied her with eyes the same storm gray as his father's. Clara saw him notice her split lip, the bruise blooming on her cheek. His small face darkened with an anger too old for his years. "Someone hurt you," he said, not a question. "I'm all right," Clara assured him. "Papa doesn't like men who hurt ladies," Samuel informed her solemnly. "He says real men protect folks who need protecting." Turner's hand settled on his son's shoulder. "Inside now. It's cold." The house's interior matched its exterior, simple, clean, purposeful. But Clara noticed the small touches that spoke of a home once shared. Embroidered curtains at the windows, a woman's rocking chair by the hearth, dried wildflowers in a blue glass vase, the ghost of Mrs. Turner lingered in these details, gentle but persistent. "The spare room's upstairs," Turner said, lifting her carpet bag. "Samuel, show Mrs. Hartley where she can wash up." The boy took her hand without hesitation, leading her to a washstand in the corner. His fingers were warm and slightly sticky, jam, perhaps, from an evening snack. When was the last time she'd held a child's hand? The innocent trust of it nearly undid her. Turner returned with clean linens and a wash basin of warm water. "Room's ready when you are." "You hungry?" Her stomach answered before she could, growling loudly enough to make Samuel giggle. She pressed a hand to her middle, embarrassed. "I'll take that as yes." Turner moved to the kitchen area, efficient and unhurried. "Sam, get the biscuits from the pantry." Clara washed her face, wincing as the warm water found her split lip. In the small mirror above the washstand, she hardly recognized herself. When had she gotten so thin? When had those shadows appeared beneath her eyes? "Does it hurt bad?" Samuel asked, watching her with concern. "I've had worse," she said, which was true. Losing Thomas had hurt worse than any physical blow. The boy retrieved a wooden box from a shelf, returning with what looked like homemade salve. "Papa makes this for cuts, from calendula and comfrey. Mama taught him before she went to heaven." The casual mention of death stopped Clara's hands. She looked at this child who spoke of loss with such matter-of-fact acceptance. "You must miss her," she said softly. Samuel nodded. "Sometimes I forget what her voice sounded like." That makes Papa sad, so I don't tell him." Clara's eyes burned. She dabbed the salve on her lip, the herbal scent sharp but not unpleasant. What else did she teach him? Lots of things. How to braid my hair for church, though he's not very good at it. How to make Johnny cakes so they don't burn. How to sing the old songs. He paused. She was teaching me letters before she died. Papa tries, but his hands are too big for the slate pencil. Turner appeared with a plate of cold beef, biscuits, and winter preserves. "Samuel, stop talking Mrs. Hartley's ear off." "I don't mind," Clara said, accepting the plate gratefully. The first bite of meat nearly made her moan. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten beef. Turner poured coffee from a pot on the stove, the smell rich and dark. Real coffee, not the chicory substitute she'd been stretching for weeks. He settled into a chair across from her, watching her eat with an expression she couldn't read. "Go on up to bed, son," he said to Samuel. "School tomorrow. But Papa, no arguments. Say goodnight to Mrs. Hartley." The boy sighed dramatically, but obeyed, offering Clara a shy smile. "Good night, ma'am. I hope you stay for breakfast. Papa makes good flapjacks." After his footsteps faded upstairs, silence settled between them. Clara ate steadily, trying not to appear desperate. The food sat warm in her stomach, reminding her body what satisfaction felt like. "The room's nothing fancy," Turner said finally. "But it's warm and dry. Lock works from the inside." She understood what he wasn't saying, that she'd be safe, that he wouldn't be another threat in the night. "Thank you. I'll be gone first thing in the morning." "Where?" The simple question stopped her cold. Where indeed? Back to the cabin to wait for Morse's return? To town to beg for work that didn't exist? "I'll figure something out," she said, the words ash in her mouth. Turner stood, gathering her empty plate. "Get some sleep. Morning's soon enough for figuring." He led her upstairs, past a door cracked open to reveal Samuel's small form, already burrowed under quilts. The spare room was at the end of the hall, furnished with a brass bed, washstand, and cedar chest. A patchwork quilt covered the bed, its colors bright even in lamplight. "My wife made that," Turner said, noticing her attention. "Said every bed needed something pretty to look at. It's lovely." Clara traced one of the fabric squares, blue calico she recognized from the dress goods at the Mercantile. Turner set her carpetbag by the chest. "Anything else you need?" She nearly laughed. What she needed would take more than this kind stranger could give. Her husband back, her debts cleared, her life returned to its axis. "No," she said. "You've done more than enough." He lingered in the doorway, seeming to wrestle with words. What those men said about working off the debt in trade, you know what they meant. Heat flooded her cheeks. "Yes. Just so we're clear, that's not why I brought you here. You're safe under my roof, no obligations. Come morning, if you want to leave, I'll take you wherever you want to go. If you want to stay a few days until you sort things out, that's fine too. But either way, you owe me nothing. Understood?" Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. "Bolt the door," he said. "Breakfast is at 6. After he left, Clara stood in the middle of the room, overwhelmed by its simple comforts. A real bed with clean sheets, a door that locked, heat from the stove below rising through the floorboards. When had such basic things become luxuries? She changed into her nightgown, aware of how threadbare it had become. Her reflection in the window glass showed a ghost of the woman she'd been, thin, pale, hollowed out by grief and hardship, but alive, still alive, settling into bed. She expected sleep to elude her in this strange place. Instead, the feather mattress embraced her like clouds. Through the walls came the comfortable sounds of a living house, Turner's heavy tread as he checked the doors, Samuel's soft cough, the settling of wood in the stove, for the first time in months. Clara didn't lie awake calculating debts or rationing tomorrow's meals or wondering if the door would hold against whoever might come knocking. She pulled the quilt to her chin. It smelled of lavender and cedar, and let exhaustion claim her. She dreamed of Thomas, but for once, he wasn't dying. He stood in a field of wheat, whole and healthy, smiling at something in the distance. When she tried to follow his gaze, she woke. The room was silver with pre-dawn light. Somewhere outside, a rooster announced the coming day. She heard Turner moving downstairs, the careful sounds of a man trying not to wake others. Clara rose and dressed, pinning her hair with practiced movements. Her lip had scabbed over in the night, and the bruise on her cheek had darkened to purple. But she felt more human than she had in weeks. Downstairs, she found Turner at the stove, sleeves rolled up and an apron tied around his waist. He glanced up at her entrance, something flickering in his eyes before he turned back to the griddle. "Coffee's ready," he said. "Cups are on the shelf." She poured herself a cup, wrapping her hands around its warmth. Through the window, she watched the sky lighten from black to gray to pearl. The Turner Ranch spread before her in the growing light, neat fences, well-tended grounds, cattle dotting the distant pasture. "It's a good place," she said. "It has its moments." Turner flipped a flapjack with practiced ease. "Though it's been missing a woman's touch." He seemed to realize how that sounded and cleared his throat. "What I mean is, Samuel could use, that is, the house needs—" "I understand," Clara said, sparing him. Footsteps thundered on the stairs as Samuel appeared, hair sticking up like prairie grass. "You stayed!" "Samuel," his father warned. But the boy's joy was infectious. He bounced to the table, chattering about school and his friend Johnny's new puppy and whether Clara knew any good stories. As they ate breakfast together, Turner's flapjacks were indeed excellent. Clara felt something shift inside her chest. This was what she'd lost when Thomas died. Not just a husband, but the simple rhythm of shared mornings, casual conversation, the comfort of knowing you weren't alone when the sun came up. It was dangerous. This warmth. She was a drowning woman, and kindness could kill as surely as cruelty if it made her forget she still had to swim. "I should go," she said when the meal was finished. "I've imposed enough." Turner studied her over his coffee cup. "Where?" That question again, sharp as winter wind. Clara straightened her spine. "I'll find work in town. The hotel might need—" "The hotel's not hiring. Neither is the Mercantile or the saloon. Drought's been hard on everyone." "Then I'll try Dodge City. And Morse's men will be watching the roads." Turner set down his cup with careful precision. "You've got a week before they come back. Use it. Stay here. Get your strength back. Make a plan that doesn't involve running blind into the prairie." Samuel looked between them with wide eyes. "Is the lady in trouble, Papa?" "Nothing we can't handle," Turner said. But his eyes stayed on Clara. "So what do you say, Mrs. Hartley? Give it a few days?" Clara knew she should refuse, knew staying would only make leaving harder. But she thought of the empty cabin, of Morse's eyes, of the cold that waited outside these walls. "A few days," she agreed, the words feeling like both surrender and salvation. Samuel cheered. Turner simply nodded and began clearing the table, as if he hadn't just thrown her a lifeline she didn't deserve. Outside, the December sun climbed higher, painting the frozen landscape in shades of gold and white. And Clara Hartley, widow and debtor, sat in a stranger's kitchen and felt, for just a moment, like she might survive after all. The days fell into rhythm like heartbeats, steady and sustaining. Clara rose with the rooster's crow, finding her way to the kitchen where coffee already waited, hot and black. She'd taken over the cooking without discussion, simply stepping into the void when she saw Turner burning eggs the second morning. "I'm not much good at this," he'd admitted, surrendering the spatula with visible relief. "Everyone has their talents," Clara replied, salvaging what she could of breakfast. "I suspect yours lie elsewhere." Now, a week into her stay, she moved through the kitchen with quiet efficiency. The pantry, she discovered, was well stocked but poorly organized. She'd spent an afternoon arranging jars and tins, taking inventory of preserved goods and dried beans. The simple act of creating order from chaos soothed something raw in her chest. Samuel shadowed her whenever school wasn't in session, hungry for the maternal attention he'd been missing. He brought her winter eggs from the henhouse, chattering about which chicken laid which egg and why Henrietta was his favorite. She clucks at me like she's telling stories, he explained, carefully placing brown eggs in Clara's apron. Papa says I imagine things, but I know she's talking. Maybe she is, Clara said, ruffling his perpetually messy hair. Animals know more than we think. The boy beamed at her, and Clara felt that dangerous warmth spreading through her chest again. She forced herself to remember this was temporary, that she was merely a guest passing through their lives. Turner kept his distance during the days, working the ranch with a handful of men he actually employed. Not 12. She'd learned, but 3 steady hands who lived in the bunkhouse. She'd see him through the window sometimes, mending fence or breaking ice on water troughs, his breath clouding in the cold air. Evenings were different. After supper, they'd sit by the fire, Turner whittling or mending tack, Clara with her sewing, Samuel practicing his letters on a slate. The domestic scene should have felt like play acting, but instead it wrapped around her like a blanket. "What's this word, Mrs. Clara?" Samuel asked one evening, showing her his slate. She'd given up correcting him about using her first name. "That's cattle. You've written it well. Papa says I need to know all the ranch words if I'm going to run this place someday." He bent back over his work, tongue poking out in concentration. Clara glanced at Turner, finding him watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. He did that sometimes, looked at her like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You're good with him," Turner said quietly, after Samuel had gone to bed. "He's easy to be good with." Clara focused on her mending, a shirt of Turner's she'd found in the pile. "He reminds me," she stopped, the words catching in her throat. "Reminds you of what?" Clara set down her needle. She'd been careful not to speak of her past beyond the bare facts, but something about the firelight and the quiet made truth easier. "I lost a baby," she said, 2 years ago, stillborn, a boy." Turner went still, his knife pausing mid-whittle. "I'm sorry. Thomas took it hard, started drinking more, gambling, said he needed to forget." Clara stared into the fire. "I needed to remember, and he needed to forget. Maybe that's when we started losing each other." "Grief's a peculiar thing," Turner said finally. "Makes some folks draw close and pushes others apart." "What did it do to you?" He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Made me careful, made me build walls." He looked at her directly, starting to think that might have been a mistake. Clara's heart stuttered, but before she could respond, something crashed outside. Turner was on his feet instantly, reaching for the rifle by the door. "Stay here," he commanded. But Clara was already moving to the window, in the moonlight. She could see a figure by the chicken coop. No, 2 figures. Her blood chilled as she recognized the Cutter brothers' shapes. Turner slipped outside, silent as smoke. Clara watched him approach the men, rifle casual in his hands, but ready. She couldn't hear words, but she saw Frank Cutter's aggressive gestures, saw Will's hand hovering near his pistol. "What's wrong?" Samuel's voice made her jump. He stood on the stairs in his nightshirt, rubbing his eyes. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just some foxes after the chickens. Your papa's handling it." But her hands shook as she drew the boy away from the window. Outside, voices rose, angry, threatening. Then Turner's voice cut through, cold as winter steel. The Cutter brothers backed toward their horses, Turner following step for step. Only when they'd ridden off did he return to the house. "Foxes?" he asked Clara dryly. Seemed kinder than the truth. He looked at Samuel, who'd curled into Clara's side on the settee. "Back to bed. Son, everything's fine." But after the boy left, Turner's expression darkened. "They were looking for you. Said Morse wants to know where you're hiding. I told them you'd moved on to Dodge City. They'll be back." "Yes." He set the rifle in its place with careful precision. "Clara, what exactly did your husband owe Morse?" She dreaded this question. "The farm equipment first, then money for seed, then—" She swallowed hard. "Thomas started gambling, trying to win enough to pay what we owed. Morse was happy to extend credit." "At what rate?" 20%, monthly. Turner cursed, low and vicious. That's not lending, that's theft. It was that or lose everything immediately. Clara twisted her hands together. Thomas was sure the next harvest would save us. Then the drought came. Turner paced to the fire and back. $300, Morse said. By now, maybe more. It grows every day. I could... He stopped, jaw clenching. No. Clara stood, facing him. I won't have you paying my debts. You've done enough. And when they come back, when they find you here, his voice roughened. You think I'll just hand you over? It's not your fight. It is now. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Clara felt tears threaten. This man, this near stranger, was ready to stand between her and harm. When had she last felt protected? When had anyone last thought her worth protecting? I should leave, she whispered. Tonight, before I bring more trouble to your door. Turner crossed to her in 2 strides, his hands settling on her shoulders. You're not going anywhere. Elias, it was the first time she'd used his given name. Something flared in his eyes, hot and hungry, before he banked it down. You're safe here, he said firmly. We'll figure out the rest. Clara wanted to protest, wanted to be strong and independent and not need this man's protection. But she was tired, so deeply tired of carrying everything alone. All right, she said. His hands gentled on her shoulders, thumbs brushing the fabric of her dress. For a moment, they stood frozen, the fire crackling beside them. Then Turner stepped back, clearing his throat. It's late. You should rest. Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. She climbed the stairs on unsteady legs, aware of his eyes following her. In her room, she pressed her back against the closed door and tried to calm her racing heart. Through the window, she could see the moon hanging full and bright over the prairie. Somewhere out there, the Cutter brothers were carrying news to Morse. Time was running short. But for tonight, she was safe. For tonight, she was wanted. The next morning brought snow, fat flakes that turned the world white and clean. Samuel was ecstatic, begging to build snow forts after school. Clara bundled him up, wrapping his scarf twice around his neck. You fuss like a mother hen, Turner observed from the doorway. He needs fussing over, Clara retorted, tugging Samuel's hat down over his ears. Turner's expression softened. Yes, he does. After Samuel left for school, Clara attacked the washing with unusual vigor. She needed the physical work, needed something to occupy her hands while her mind churned. The confrontation with the Cutters had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. She was hanging sheets on the line strung across the porch when Turner appeared. Need help? I can manage. But he took the other end of the sheet anyway, helping her fight the wind that tried to turn the wet fabric into a sail. Their fingers brushed as they worked the clothespins, and Clara felt that touch all the way to her toes. About last night, Turner began. Which part? Clara asked, then blushed at her boldness. A smile tugged at his mouth. The part where we almost... Yes? He secured the last pin with more force than necessary. I meant what I said about no obligations. You're here as my guest, under my protection. Nothing more is expected. Clara turned to face him fully. This good man, trying so hard to be honorable, and if I wanted more... The words hung in the cold air between them. Turner went very still, his eyes searching hers. Do you? He asked roughly. Clara thought of his hands on her shoulders, of the way he looked at her across the supper table, of how right it felt to stand beside him in the kitchen each morning. I don't know, she admitted. I feel I've been frozen for so long, and now I'm starting to thaw. It hurts. I know. His voice was gentle now. Believe me, I know. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch was light as snowfall, but Clara felt it like fire. Take your time, he said. I'm not going anywhere. A horse's whinny broke the moment. They turned to see a rider approaching. Not the Cutters, but Jonas Palmer from town. His horse lathered despite the cold. "Turner," he called. "Got news you need to hear." Turner helped the man down, and Clara quickly offered coffee. In the kitchen, Jonas warmed his hands around the cup, his weathered face grim. "It's about Morse," he said. "He's been buying up debts all over the county, the Hendersons, the Clearys, that Swedish family near Bitter Creek. He's planning something big." "What kind of something?" Turner asked. "Heard tell he's got a buyer interested in large parcels of land, some cattle company from back east. Morse aims to foreclose on everyone at once, sell the whole valley in one sweep." Clara's cup clattered against its saucer. "He can do that? If he owns the debts legal-like, yes." Jonas looked at her with sympathy. "Sorry, Mrs. Hartley. Know your place is part of his plan." Turner's hand found Clara's shoulder, squeezing gently. "When?" "Soon as he can file the papers, maybe 2 weeks, maybe less." After Jonas left, Clara and Turner sat in heavy silence. The sheets on the porch snapped in the wind like flags of surrender. "There has to be something we can do," Turner said finally. But Clara knew better. Men like Morse didn't lose. They schemed and squeezed until they got what they wanted. She'd been foolish to think she could hide here forever, playing house with a widower and his son. "I should go to him," she said quietly. "Make a deal. Maybe if I sign over the land peacefully." "No." Turner's voice was sharp. "We don't give up that easy." "We?" Clara laughed bitterly. "This isn't your fight, remember?" He caught her hand, his fingers warm and strong around hers. "Everything changed when you walked through my door. Clara Hartley. Time you accepted that." She wanted to pull away, wanted to protect him from the storm she'd brought to his doorstep. But his grip was sure, and she was tired of fighting alone. "All right," she whispered. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the world in white. But spring would come eventually. Clara knew. The question was whether she'd be here to see it. The morning started like any other, with Clara kneading dough for the day's bread. Her hands worked the mixture with practiced ease, finding comfort in the familiar rhythm. Through the window, she watched Turner and his men driving a small herd to the lower pasture, their shapes dark against the snow-bright landscape. She'd been pressing her palm into the dough when the first wave of dizziness struck. The kitchen tilted sideways, and she gripped the table's edge, waiting for the world to steady. When it passed, she returned to her work, dismissing it as fatigue. The second wave hit harder. Clara's knees buckled, and she barely managed to lower herself to a chair before the darkness claimed her. She woke to find herself on the kitchen floor, Turner's face swimming into focus above her. His hands cradled her head, and behind him, she could see young Matthew, one of the ranch hands, hovering anxiously. "Clara, can you hear me?" She tried to nod, but the movement sent the room spinning again. Her stomach churned dangerously. "Get Doc Morrison," Turner barked at Matthew. "Fast as you can ride." "No," Clara protested weakly. "I'm fine, just tired." But Turner was already lifting her, carrying her to the settee with easy strength. He settled her gently, pulling a quilt over her trembling form. "When's the last time you ate a proper meal?" he demanded. "This morning. Before this morning. Before you came here." Clara closed her eyes, trying to remember. The weeks before had blurred together in a haze of rationing and hunger. "You've been giving most of your portion to Samuel," Turner said, his voice rough with something that sounded like anger. "I've watched you do it. He's a growing boy, and you're wasting away." His hand touched her face, checking for fever. "Damn it, Clara!" She'd never heard him curse in the house before. It spoke to his agitation more than any shouting would have. Dr. Morrison arrived within the hour, his black bag preceding him through the door. He was a thin, neat man with gentle hands and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Turner paced the kitchen while the doctor examined Clara in the parlor, asking quiet questions that made her increasingly uncomfortable. "When was your last monthly course, Mrs. Hartley?" The question stopped her cold. She tried to think back, to calculate. But the weeks of grief and hardship had disrupted her body's rhythm so thoroughly she'd stopped paying attention. I'm not certain. 2 months ago? Perhaps 3? The doctor continued his examination, his face revealing nothing. When he finally packed his instruments away, his expression was carefully neutral. "I'd like to speak with you privately," he said. "Whatever you have to say can be said in front of Mr. Turner." Clara replied, too tired for secrets. Morrison glanced between them, then nodded. "Very well, Mrs. Hartley. You're approximately 3 months with child." The words hung in the air like gunshots. Clara felt the blood drain from her face, her hand moving instinctively to her stomach. Behind the doctor, Turner had gone absolutely still. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I assure you, it's quite possible. And given your current state of malnutrition, potentially dangerous. You need proper food, rest, and care if you hope to carry this child to term." A child. Thomas's child. The room seemed to contract around her, and she fought to breathe normally. "I'll send over a tonic to help with the weakness," Morrison continued, professional in the face of her shock. "But food and rest are the best medicine. No heavy work. No stress if it can be avoided." He gave Turner additional instructions that Clara barely heard through the roaring in her ears. When the door closed behind the doctor, silence descended like a heavy blanket. Turner stood by the fireplace, one hand braced against the mantel. She couldn't see his face, couldn't gauge his reaction to this news that changed everything. "I didn't know," she said finally. "I swear to you, I didn't know." "Wouldn't have mattered if you did." His voice was steady. Too steady. "I'll leave tomorrow. Tonight, if you prefer. I won't burden you with—" He turned then, and the look on his face stopped her words. "You think I'd turn out a pregnant woman in winter? What kind of man do you take me for? A man who didn't bargain for this?" Clara struggled to sit up, fighting another wave of dizziness. "You've been kind, but a baby. Your husband's baby." The words weren't accusation, just fact, but they hit like fists anyway. "Yes." Turner crossed to her, sitting on the low table so they were eye level. "Clara, look at me." She raised her eyes reluctantly, expecting to see disgust or pity. Instead, she found something far more dangerous: determination. "You're carrying a child. That changes things. Yes, but not in the way you think." He leaned forward, his voice intense. "Morse finds out about this. He'll use it. A pregnant widow with debts? He'll have the law on his side and sympathy besides. You'll lose everything, including that baby." "I know." The words came out broken. "Don't you think I know? So we changed the game." Turner's eyes held hers. "Marry me." Clara's heart stopped. "What?" "Marry me. Take my name. My protection." Morse can't touch a married woman the same way he can a widow. "Your debts become mine, and I've got resources he doesn't know about." "You can't be serious." "Dead serious." He stood, pacing now. "It's practical. You need protection. I need—" He stopped, running a hand through his hair. "Samuel needs a mother. The ranch needs a woman's touch. We could help each other. And the baby, another man's child?" Turner's jaw tightened. "Would be raised as mine. No questions, no shame. Just another Turner on the ranch." Clara pressed her hands to her temples, trying to think through the shock. "People will talk. They'll count months. They'll know." "Let them count. We'll say the baby came early. Happens all the time out here." "Why?" The question erupted from her. "Why would you do this?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. When he spoke, his voice was low. "My wife died trying to give me another child. Bled out while I held her hand, begging God for a miracle that never came. And here you are, carrying life, needing what I can give. Maybe that's answer enough." Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks. This man offering to take on her debts, her shame, her unborn child. It was too much. "I can't let you sacrifice." "Who says it's sacrifice?" Turner turned back to her, his gray eyes fierce. You think I haven't noticed how this house has come alive since you arrived? How Samuel smiles more, how I find myself hurrying back from the range just to see if you need anything. Her breath caught. Elias. I'm not a man given to pretty words. Clara, but I know what I want. Question is, what do you want? What did she want? Safety for her child, certainly. Freedom from Morse's threats, but looking at Turner's weathered face, she realized she wanted more than that. She wanted the quiet mornings in the kitchen, the evenings by the fire, the sense of belonging she'd found under this roof. It wouldn't be fair to you, she whispered. Let me decide what's fair. He moved closer, kneeling beside the settee. I'm not asking for love. Clara, that comes or it doesn't. I'm asking for partnership, for a chance to build something good from all this broken pieces. Samuel's voice drifted from the kitchen. He must have come in the back way from school. Papa, where is everybody? Give us an answer, Turner said urgently, before the boy comes in and I lose my nerve. Clara looked into his eyes and saw not pity, but possibility. Her hand moved to her stomach, where new life grew despite all odds, a child who would need a father, a home, a name without shame attached. Yes, she breathed. Something flared in Turner's eyes. Relief, joy, perhaps even the love he claimed not to expect. He caught her hand, pressing it briefly to his lips. Papa, I can't find... Oh, Samuel stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. Is Mrs. Clara sick? She's fine, son. Turner rose, his hand still holding Clara's. Just tired. In fact, we have news. The boy approached cautiously, his gray eyes worried. Clara reached out with her free hand, drawing him close. How would you feel about me staying here permanent-like? She asked gently. Samuel's face lit up. Really? Forever? If you'll have me. The boy threw his arms around her neck, nearly knocking her backward. Yes, 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 over his head. Clara met Turner's eyes. He was smiling, the expression transforming his usually stern features. Careful, son, he said, gently extracting Samuel. Mrs. Clara needs rest. Why? Samuel asked with a child's directness. Clara and Turner exchanged glances. Because she's growing us a baby. Turner said simply, a little brother or sister for you. Samuel's eyes went round as dollars. A baby? Here, in our house? If that's all right with you, Clara said, suddenly anxious. The boy considered this with 6-year-old seriousness. Will the baby like chickens? Because Henrietta doesn't like loud noises. Turner laughed, the sound rich and warm. We'll make sure the baby knows to be quiet around Henrietta. Then it's all right. Samuel decided. He looked at Clara shyly. Does this mean I can call you Mama? The word broke something open in Clara's chest. She pulled the boy close again, hiding her tears in his hair. If you want to. I want to, he whispered back. Turner's hand settled on her shoulder, warm and solid. We'll go to town tomorrow, he said quietly. See the preacher? Make it official before Morse hears tell. Clara nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Tomorrow she would be Clara Turner. The widow Hartley would disappear, along with her debts and shame. It wasn't the love match she'd dreamed of as a girl, but it was something perhaps more precious, a second chance. That evening, as she helped Samuel with his letters while Turner worked on ranch accounts, Clara felt the baby flutter inside her for the first time. A butterfly touch, barely there, but real, life persisting despite everything. She looked up to find Turner watching her, his ledger forgotten. All right? He asked. Yes, she said, meaning it. We're all right. Outside, the winter wind howled across the prairie, but inside the Turner house, all was warm and well. And if anyone noticed that Clara's hand lingered on her stomach, or that Turner's eyes followed her with something deeper than mere kindness, they were too content to comment. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Morse, the marriage, the town's gossip. But tonight, in this lamplit room with her patchwork family, Clara allowed herself to hope. The baby moved again, stronger this time, as if in agreement. New life, new chances, new beginnings. Perhaps the frontier's greatest gift was its willingness to let people start over, to build something from nothing, to find love in the most unexpected places. And if that love came with conditions and complications, well, what love didn't? The important thing was choosing to try, to reach out across the darkness and find another hand reaching back. Clara smiled, bending back to Samuel's slate. Tomorrow, she would become someone new. Tonight, she was already home. The wedding had been simple, a few words before the preacher. Turner's ranch hands as witnesses. Samuel holding the rings with trembling excitement. Clara wore her best dress, let out at the waist to accommodate her growing middle. If anyone noticed, they kept their thoughts private. 3 days of peace, 3 days of adjusting to her new name, new life, new possibilities. Then, like wolves scenting blood, they came. Clara was hanging wash when she saw the dust cloud on the horizon. Her hands stilled on the wet sheet, dread pooling in her stomach. She knew, even before the riders took shape, who it would be. "Samuel," she called, keeping her voice calm. "Go to the barn. Tell Jake to ring the bell." The boy looked up from his stick horse. "Why?" "Just go, sweetheart. Quick as you can." Something in her tone sent him running. Clara forced herself to continue hanging clothes. Though her hands shook, the bell began to toll. 3 sharp rings, the signal for trouble. Turner appeared from the north pasture at a gallop, his men converging from their various tasks. He swung down from his horse, crossing to Clara in quick strides. "How many?" "5 riders. Morse in front." His jaw tightened. "Get inside." "No." Clara straightened her spine. "I'm your wife now. I stand with you." He looked like he wanted to argue, but the riders were too close. Instead, he positioned himself slightly in front of her, hand resting casual-like on his pistol. Morse drew up in a cloud of dust, his men fanning out behind him. The Cutter brothers were there, along with 2 others Clara didn't recognize. Hired guns by the look of them. Well. So, Morse's eyes traveled over Clara, lingering on her wedding ring and swollen middle. "Mrs. Turner now, is it? That was quick work. State your business." "Morse." Turner said evenly. "My business is with her." Morse jerked his chin at Clara. "Wedding or no wedding, she owes me money. Her husband's debts don't disappear because she found herself a new bed to warm." Clara felt Turner tense beside her. "Watch your mouth. $300. Morse continued, ignoring the warning. "Plus interest. Course, now that she's breeding, that changes things. Can't work off debts in the usual way when you're carrying—" "How much?" Turner's voice was deadly quiet. Morse smiled, sensing victory. "400 should cover it. Cash. Done." The simple word surprised everyone, including Clara. Morse's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Just like that? Just like that? Wait here." Turner turned toward the house, but Clara caught his arm. "Elias, no. We can't—" "Trust me," he said quietly, then louder. "Jake, keep our guests company." The ranch hand stepped forward, Winchester prominent across his arms. Turner disappeared into the house, returning moments later with a leather portfolio. He extracted a bank draft, filling it out with steady hands. $400, he said, handing it to Morse. "Payment in full. Now get off my land." Morse examined the draft like he expected it to burst into flames. "This better not bounce. Turner." "It won't. And Morse, any debts my wife had are now cleared. You come near her again, we'll have a different kind of conversation." Big talk for a small rancher. Will Cutter sneered. Turner smiled, cold as winter wind. Small rancher with friends in Austin? Friends who'd be real interested to hear about your 20% monthly interest rates. Usury's illegal in Texas, case you forgot. Morse's face darkened. "You threatening me?" "Stating facts." "Take the money and go, or we can discuss this with Judge Harper. Your choice." For a moment, violence hung in the air like smoke. Then Morse folded the bank draft, tucking it into his coat. "Pleasure doing business," he said, touching his hat mockingly to Clara. "Enjoy your new family. Mrs. Turner, Hope it lasts longer than your first one." They rode off in another cloud of dust. Clara stood frozen until they disappeared over the rise. Then her knees gave out. Turner caught her, holding her steady. $400, she whispered. "Elias, that's cattle money. Been saving it for breeding stock." He helped her to the porch steps. "Figured keeping my wife was a better investment. I'll pay you back. Every penny, I swear. Clara." He knelt before her, taking her hands. "What's mine is yours now. Says so right in the vows. For richer or poorer. Remember?" She searched his face. "Why did you really pay it? You could have fought them, called their bluff about the judge." Turner was quiet for a moment. "Because I saw how you looked when they rode up. Like a rabbit seeing a hawk's shadow. I never want to see that look again." Before Clara could respond, Samuel came running from the barn. "Are the bad men gone?" "They're gone," Turner assured him. "And they won't be back." "Good." The boy climbed into Clara's lap, careful of her belly. "I don't like them. They made Mama scared." Turner's eyes met Clara's over Samuel's head. She'd been Mama for less than a week, but the boy had taken to it like drought broke earth to rain. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. The house was quiet. Turner in his room. Samuel tucked safe in his bed. But her mind churned with numbers. $400. A fortune by any measure. Money that should have gone to the ranch, to Samuel's future. She rose, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders, and made her way downstairs. The main room was silver with moonlight. She moved to the desk where Turner kept his accounts, running her fingers over the worn leather ledger. "Can't sleep?" she startled, turning to find Turner in the doorway. He'd pulled on pants but nothing else, his chest bare in the moonlight. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks and looked away. "I was thinking about the money." "Don't." He moved closer, and she caught the scent of soap and leather that always surrounded him. "It's done. But the ranch, we'll survive. We've made do with less before." He studied her in the dim light. "This isn't really about money, is it?" Clara sank into the desk chair. "I feel like I'm drowning you. My debts, my problems, now a baby that isn't even yours. Stop." The word came out harsh. Turner knelt before her chair, his hands bracketing hers on the armrests. "That baby is mine now. You're mine now. The law says it, the church says it, and more importantly, I say it. But, no buts." His thumb brushed over her wedding ring. "I knew what I was taking on. Made my choice with eyes wide open." "Why?" The question she'd asked before, but still couldn't quite believe. "Why would you choose this burden?" Something shifted in his expression. "You really don't know?" Clara shook her head, afraid to guess, afraid to hope. Turner stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "That first night, when I found you with those men, you were on the ground, blood on your face, everything stacked against you, and you were still fighting. Still had steel in your spine." He turned back to her. "I looked at you and thought, there's a woman who won't break." I was terrified. But you didn't break." He moved closer. "Then you came here, and I watched you work yourself into my home like you'd always belonged. Saw how you were with Samuel, how you brought life back to this place. Made me remember what it felt like to not be alone." Clara's eyes burned with unshed tears. "Elias." "I'm not good with words," he continued, almost angrily. "Don't know how to say pretty things like Thomas probably did, but I know what I feel. Know that when you're not in a room, I notice. Know that when you smile at Samuel, my chest gets tight. Know that the thought of you leaving makes me—" Clara stood, closing the distance between them. "I'm not leaving. No, no." She placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heart race under her palm. "This is my home now. You're my family now. All of you." His hand covered hers, pressing it closer. Even if things between us never—" "Elias." She waited until he met her eyes. "I buried one husband, mourned him proper, but I'm not dead, and neither are you." Understanding dawned in his expression. Slowly, giving her time to pull away, he lowered his head. The kiss was careful, almost hesitant. Two people remembering what it meant to want. Clara's free hand found his shoulder, anchoring herself as the kiss deepened. He tasted of coffee and promises, of second chances and hope, when they finally parted, both breathing unsteadily. She saw wonder in his eyes. "Clara," he said, her name a prayer. A sharp pain lanced through her middle. She gasped, doubling over. "What is it?" Turner's arms were around her instantly. "The baby?" Another pain, stronger. "Something's wrong." He scooped her up like she weighed nothing, carrying her to the settee. "I'll get the doctor." "No, wait." Clara gripped his hand as the pain eased. It's passing, but she could feel wetness between her legs, warm and terrifying. In the moonlight, she saw Turner's face go pale as he noticed the dark stain spreading on her nightgown. "Stay with me," he commanded, then shouted, "Jake, get Doc Morrison, now!" The next hour blurred into a haze of pain and fear. Turner never left her side, holding her hand while she fought to keep the baby inside her body. Samuel appeared at some point, white-faced and scared, until Jake's wife Mary took him to the bunkhouse. Dr. Morrison arrived with the dawn, his examination gentle but thorough. When he finally straightened, his expression was grave but not hopeless. "The baby's holding on," he said, "but it's touch and go. Complete bed rest. Mrs. Turner, no excitement, no strain. If you can make it another week without more bleeding, chances improve considerably." After he left, Clara lay still, afraid to move, afraid to breathe too deep. Turner sat beside her, still holding her hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" "The money, the trouble. Now this." "Stop apologizing for living," he said fiercely. "You hear me? Stop it!" Clara turned her face into his shoulder, finally letting the tears come. He held her while she cried, his hands gentle in her hair. "We're going to get through this," he murmured. "You, me, and this baby. We're all going to be fine." "How do you know?" "Because I just got you. I'm not letting either of you go." Outside, the sun rose over the prairie, painting the world in shades of gold and possibility. Inside the Turner house, a man and woman clung to each other and to hope, while deep in her womb, a tiny life fought to stay. It would be a long week, a longer month, but they would face it together. This patchwork family bound by choice rather than blood. And sometimes, Clara thought as Turner's arms tightened around her, those were the strongest bonds of all. The baby fluttered inside her, faint but determined. Still here, still fighting, like mother, like child. "That's it," Turner whispered, his hand joining hers over the slight swell. "You hang on in there. You're a Turner now, and Turners don't quit." Clara closed her eyes, letting his strength flow into her. Whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. She had a husband who'd paid a fortune for her freedom, a son who called her mama, and a baby who refused to give up. It was more than she'd dared hope for when she'd stood in that cold cabin, facing down men who saw her as something to be used. Now she was Clara Turner, protected and cherished, with a family worth fighting for. The morning light grew stronger, chasing away the shadows, and Clara held on to Turner's hand, to her baby, to the future they were building one careful breath at a time. The week of bed rest had passed like a century. Clara lay propped against pillows, watching dust motes dance in the afternoon sunlight. The bleeding had stopped after that terrifying night, but Dr. Morrison insisted on continued caution. Every movement was measured, every twinge analyzed for danger. Turner appeared in the doorway, hat in hand. "Judge Harper's in town. Thought we should make things proper legal, given the circumstances." Clara smoothed the quilt over her growing belly. "What circumstances?" "Your name on the deed to this place, for one." He entered the room fully, pulling papers from his jacket. "If something happens to me, I want you and the children provided for. Nothing's going to happen to you. Ranching's dangerous work." He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle her. "I should have done this soon as we married, but with everything. Clara took the papers, scanning the legal language. He was giving her half of everything: the ranch, the cattle, the accounts. "Elias, this is too much." "It's right." His hand covered hers. "You're my wife. What's mine is yours." She thought of Thomas, how he'd kept her name off everything, how his debts had become her prison after his death. This gesture, more than any words, told her what kind of man she'd married. "Thank you," she whispered. Turner cleared his throat, uncomfortable with gratitude. "There's something else. Been thinking about the future, about the baby." A knock interrupted him. Samuel peered around the door, his face bright with excitement. "Mama, there's a lady here to see you." Before Clara could respond, a familiar figure swept into the room. Margaret O'Brien, the minister's wife, carried a basket and wore her usual expression of determined charity. "My dear Mrs. Turner," she gushed, settling herself in the chair beside the bed without invitation. "I simply had to come when I heard about your delicate condition." Clara forced a smile. Margaret meant well, but her visits often left wounds disguised as kindness. "How thoughtful." "Yes, well, Christian duty and all." Margaret's eyes traveled over Clara's obvious pregnancy. "Such a blessing. A new baby. So soon after your wedding. Too, you and Mr. Turner didn't waste any time." Turner's jaw tightened. "Mrs. O'Brien." "Oh, I'm not judging." Margaret's laugh tinkled like broken glass. "These frontier marriages, well, we all understand how things happen. Why, I was just telling Mrs. Henderson that it's wonderful how Mr. Turner took you in, debts and all. Such a generous man. That's enough." Turner's voice could have frozen fire. Margaret's eyes widened with false innocence. "I'm only saying what everyone's thinking. How fortunate Clara is to have found a man willing to raise another man's child as his own." The words hung in the air like a curse. Clara felt blood drain from her face, her hand moving protectively to her belly. "Get out." Turner stood, towering over the minister's wife. "Now." "Well," Margaret clutched her basket, rising huffily. "I was only you were trying to hurt my wife with your poisoned tongue." He moved toward her, and Margaret scurried backward. "In my house, while she's fighting to keep our baby safe." "Your baby?" Margaret's voice dripped skepticism. "My baby," Turner confirmed. Steel in every word. "My wife, my family. And if I hear you've been spreading your Christian charity around town, you'll answer to me. Clear?" Margaret fled, leaving her basket behind. Clara heard the front door slam, then Samuel's confused voice asking why the lady left so fast. Turner stood with his back to her, hands clenched at his sides. The afternoon light caught the tension in his shoulders, the rigid line of his spine. "She's not wrong," Clara said quietly. He spun to face her. "Don't. The whole town's counting months, doing the arithmetic. They know." "I don't give a damn what they know or think they know." He crossed back to the bed, sitting carefully beside her. "This baby is mine in every way that matters. But when people say things, when the child hears whispers, then that child will know their father doesn't tolerate disrespect to family." His hand found her belly, spreading wide over the curve. "This baby will be born a Turner. Will carry my name, inherit my land. Call me Papa. That's the only truth that matters." As if in agreement, the baby kicked strongly against his palm. Turner's eyes widened with wonder. "Was that?" "Yes." Clara placed her hand over his, pressing down slightly. "Wait." Another kick, stronger this time. Turner's face transformed, joy replacing anger so completely it took Clara's breath away. "Hello there, little one," he murmured, leaning closer. "That's it. You show them how strong you are. Strong like your mama." "Elias." Clara's throat tightened with emotion. He looked up at her, and she saw everything in his eyes. Love, protection, promise. What I was trying to say earlier, before that harpy interrupted, I want to adopt this baby proper. Legal papers and all. So there's never any question. You don't have to. I want to. His thumb stroked over her belly. This child will have my name from birth. Any man wants to question it. They'll deal with me. Clara pulled him down for a kiss, pouring all her gratitude and growing love into the contact. When they parted, both were breathing unsteadily. "Mama?" Samuel's voice came from the hallway. "Can I come in?" "Of course, sweetheart." The boy entered carrying a glass of water, moving carefully so as not to spill. "Mary said you need to drink lots." "Mary's right." Clara accepted the glass, touched by his care. Samuel climbed onto the bed, settling against Turner's side. "Is the baby okay? That mean lady didn't hurt it, did she?" "The baby's fine," Turner assured him. "Feel here." He guided Samuel's small hand to Clara's belly, just as another kick came. The boy's face lit with delight. "It's saying hello." "I think you're right," Clara said, ruffling his hair. They sat together in the golden afternoon light. Man, woman, boy, and unborn child. A family stitched together from loss and loneliness, stronger for their choosing. That evening, after Samuel had gone to bed and the ranch had settled into nighttime quiet, Clara lay wakeful despite her exhaustion. The baby was active, rolling and kicking as if making up for the week of fearful stillness. Turner entered quietly, carrying a tray. "Thought you might be hungry." "I am." She struggled to sit up, and he helped her, adjusting pillows behind her back. "Thank you." He'd brought beef broth, fresh bread, and early strawberries from the cold frame. Simple food, but prepared with care. As she ate, he settled in the chair beside the bed, pulling out papers. "What's that?" she asked between bites. "Adoption forms. Judge Harper left them." He showed her the documents. "Once the baby's born, we file these, makes everything official." Clara set down her spoon, studying the papers. In bold letters across the top, "Petition for legal adoption." Below, spaces for names, dates, declarations of intent. "You've thought of everything. Trying to..." He leaned back, watching her. "Want this done right. No loose ends for gossips to pull at." "There'll always be gossips. Let them talk. They'll get tired eventually. Move on to newer scandals." His lips quirked. "Besides, once they see this baby, won't matter who planted the seed. What matters is who tends the garden." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. These past weeks, she'd watched this taciturn rancher transform into something she'd never expected. A gentle protector, a fierce defender, a man who chose love over convention. "I need to tell you something," she said. Turner tensed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." She reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. "I've been thinking about Thomas, about our marriage." His grip tightened slightly, but he remained silent. "He wasn't a bad man," Clara continued. "But he wasn't. We weren't..." She struggled for words. "I thought I knew what marriage was, duty and companionship and making do. But this, with you, it's different." "Different how?" She met his eyes. "You see me. Not just a wife to cook and clean and warm your bed. You see me, and you make me feel safe in a way I didn't know I was missing." Turner lifted their joined hands, pressing his lips to her knuckles. "You make me feel alive again. Didn't realize how much I'd shut down after Mary died, until you walked through my door." "I'm falling in love with you," Clara whispered. "Is that wrong? So soon after..." "Nothing about this is wrong." He moved from chair to bed edge, cupping her face gently. "We're two people who've known loss, finding something good together. If that's not worth celebrating, I don't know what is." She leaned into his touch. "The ladies' sewing circle will have opinions. The ladies' sewing circle can go..." He caught himself, making Clara laugh. "Such language, Mr. Turner. You bring out the worst in me, Mrs. Turner." But his eyes said different, spoke of best things and new beginnings. The baby kicked again, hard enough to make Clara gasp. Turner's hand immediately went to her belly, protective and possessive. "Easy there, little fighter," he murmured. "Your mama needs rest. I think he's going to be a handful." Clara said, "She," Turner corrected. "Definitely a girl. I can tell by how stubborn she's being." Like father, like daughter. Exactly. He grinned, the expression taking years off his weathered face. They stayed that way as evening deepened into night, hands linked over the promise of new life. Outside, coyotes called to the rising moon. Inside, the Turner house held warmth and hope and the quiet certainty of love taking root. When Dr. Morrison visited the next week, he proclaimed both mother and baby thriving. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," he said, packing his instruments. "This child seems determined to make their appearance when ready, not before." After he left, Clara was allowed to move to the porch, bundled in quilts like precious cargo. The March air carried hints of spring, melting snow, emerging grass, the promise of renewal. Turner sat beside her, Samuel playing at their feet with toy soldiers. The domestic scene was everything Clara had never dared dream of during those desperate months alone. "I've been thinking," Turner said. "Dangerous habit." He smiled at her teasing. "About names. For the baby." Oh. Clara had been avoiding the subject, unsure how to navigate the delicate territory of naming another man's child. "If it's a boy, I'd like to call him James, after my father." Turner kept his eyes on the horizon. "If it's a girl, thought maybe Hope." "Hope," Clara repeated, tasting the word. "Why hope?" "Because that's what she'll be. Hope for the future. Hope that good things can come from hard times." He turned to her then. "Hope that love finds a way." Clara couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. She reached for his hand, holding tight. "Hope Turner," she managed finally. "It's perfect." Samuel looked up from his game. "I like Hope, but what if it's a boy?" "Then James Turner," Turner said. "A strong name for a strong boy." "James Turner," Samuel repeated, considering. "Can I teach him to ride?" "When he's old enough," Clara said, smiling at his eagerness. "Or she," Samuel added conscientiously. "Girls can ride too. You should see Mary's daughter on a horse." As they laughed at his enthusiasm, Clara felt the rightness of this moment settle into her bones. This was her family, not the one she'd planned or lost, but the one she'd found, built on choosing each other, on seeing past circumstances to possibilities. The baby moved within her, gentle now, as if sensing the peace surrounding them. Soon enough, this child would enter the world bearing the Turner name, protected by Turner love, raised in Turner values of strength and kindness, and choosing to stand for what's right. Margaret O'Brien and her gossiping friends could count months all they wanted, but they couldn't count the moments like this. A man's hand protective over an unborn child not of his blood. A boy's excitement over a sibling he already loved. A woman's heart expanding to hold more happiness than she'd thought possible. "Thank you," Clara whispered to Turner. "For what?" "For this, all of this, for choosing us." Turner brought her hand to his lips, his eyes holding promises too deep for words. "Best choice I ever made." The sun settled lower, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, and the Turner family sat together on their porch, complete in all the ways that truly mattered, waiting for hope to arrive. Spring arrived in fits and starts, teasing with warm days before plunging back into frost. Clara's belly had grown round and full, making simple tasks adventures in balance. Turner had forbidden her from attempting stairs alone after finding her gripping the banister, winded halfway up. "You're carrying precious cargo," he'd said, sweeping her into his arms despite her protests. "My cargo, my rules." Now she sat in the kitchen, teaching Samuel his letters while bread dough rose beneath damp cloth. The boy's tongue poked out as he concentrated, forming careful letters on his slate. "That's excellent," Clara praised, running her hand through his unruly hair. "Your spelling is improving so much. Papa says I need good letters for keeping ranch records someday." Samuel beamed at her approval. "But I told him Hope might want to run the ranch instead." "Did you now?" Clara smiled at his easy acceptance of his coming sibling. "And what did Papa say?" "He said Turner Ranch is big enough for both of us." The boy returned to his slate, then looked up suddenly. "Mama, will you love the baby more than me?" Clara's heart clenched. She pulled him close as her belly would allow. "Oh, sweetheart, love isn't pie. Giving some to one person doesn't mean less for another. My heart just grows bigger." "Like your tummy?" She laughed. "Exactly like that." Turner entered from outside, bringing the smell of fresh air and honest work. His eyes found them immediately, softening at the domestic scene. "How are my scholars?" He dropped a kiss on Samuel's head, then leaned down to press his lips to Clara's forehead. Lingering. "Papa!" Samuel giggled. "You're getting mushy again. Man's allowed to be mushy about his family." Turner's hand found Clara's belly with the ease of habit now. "How's our little one?" "Active. I think she's trying to kick her way out." Clara covered his hand with hers. "How was town?" His expression darkened slightly. "Fine. Got the supplies." But Clara knew him well enough now to read the tension in his shoulders. "What happened?" "Nothing worth repeating." He moved to wash his hands at the basin. "Elias." He sighed, recognizing her tone. "Ran into Mrs. O'Brien and her gaggle. They were discussing how fortunate certain people are to find protectors in their time of need." "Ah." Clara kept her voice light, though the words stung. "And I may have mentioned that fortune runs both ways, that a man's blessed to find a woman who brings light back to his home." He turned, eyes fierce. "They scattered like chickens." Samuel looked between them, sensing undercurrents. "Why don't people like us?" Turner sat down heavily. "It's not that, son. Sometimes folks need someone to gossip about. Makes them feel important." "But why, Mama?" Clara touched the boy's cheek. "Because I came here needing help, and your papa gave it. Some people don't understand kindness without wanting something in return." "That's stupid," Samuel declared with 6-year-old certainty. "Yes," Turner agreed. "It is." That evening, Clara worked on tiny clothes while Turner did his accounts. The fabric was from her wedding dress. She'd carefully taken it apart, determining to make something new from something old. Each tiny stitch was a prayer, a hope, a promise to the child growing within. "I've been thinking," Turner said suddenly. Clara smiled without looking up. "Your favorite pastime." "About names again. I know we discussed it, but—" He set down his pencil. "What if we named him after Thomas? If it's a boy, I mean—" Clara's needle stilled. She looked up to find Turner watching her with that careful expression he wore when navigating difficult territory. "Why would you suggest that? Man gave his life to bring this child into being. Seems only right to honor that." Turner's voice was gruff. "Besides, might quiet some waggling tongues if the baby carries his father's name along with mine." Clara set aside her sewing, moving carefully to where Turner sat. She settled onto his lap, his arms coming around her automatically. "You continue to surprise me, Elias Turner." "That's so." His hand spread over her belly, thumb stroking absently. "Thomas wasn't. We didn't—" She struggled for words. "What we had was partnership. Necessary, comfortable enough, but this—" She gestured between them. "This is choosing, every day, choosing each other, choosing this child. That means more than blood or names or what gossips say. So no to Thomas. No to Thomas." She leaned her forehead against his. "This baby is yours, in heart, in law, in every way that matters. Let's not confuse that with gestures for the town's benefit." Turner's arms tightened around her. "Have I told you today that I love you? Only twice?" Clara smiled against his neck. "You're slipping." "Can't have that." He tilted her chin up, kissing her thoroughly. "I love you, Clara Turner. Love this baby. Love the life we're building." Even with all the complications? Especially with the complications. Smooth roads make for boring journeys. The baby kicked between them, making them both laugh. Turner bent to address Clara's belly directly. "You hear that, little one? Your papa's a philosopher now. Next he'll be quoting poetry." "Don't give her ideas." Clara warned, "I can barely handle romantic Elias. Poetic Elias might be too much." They were still laughing when Samuel padded downstairs in his nightshirt. "Can't sleep. The baby's being loud." "Loud?" Clara asked. In my head. Samuel climbed onto Turner's free knee. I keep thinking about songs to sing her. Want to practice one now? Turner suggested. Might help you sleep. Samuel nodded, then began singing in his clear, sweet voice. Hush, little baby. Don't say a word. Papa's gonna buy you a mockingbird. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Turner had changed the traditional mama to papa, and Samuel sang it like he'd always known these words. The baby stilled, as if listening, when the song ended. Turner carried Samuel back to bed, Clara following slowly. They tucked him in together, a ritual that had become as natural as breathing. Night, mama, night, papa, night, baby. Samuel yawned hugely. Back in their room, for it had become their room over the past weeks. Turner moving his things in gradually. Clara sat on the bed edge, rubbing her lower back. Hurting? Turner knelt before her, hands replacing hers, kneading the sore muscles. Just tired. She's sitting low tonight. Won't be much longer. His hands were gentle but firm, finding every knot of tension. Doc Morrison said any day now. Are you ready? Turner's hands stilled. Are you? I asked first. He resumed the massage. Quiet for a moment. I watched Mary die trying to bring life into this world. Held her hand while she bled, begged God to take me instead. When he didn't, I thought I'd never risk that again. Clara covered his hands with hers, stilling them. Elias. But then you arrived. He looked up at her, eyes bright with unshed tears. Stubborn, brave, already carrying life. And I realized something. The risk isn't in the loving or the losing. It's in the not trying at all. I'm strong, Clara said softly. Dr. Morrison says everything looks good. I know. He pressed his forehead to her belly. I can't lose you, either of you. Clara ran her fingers through his hair, offering comfort. You won't. We're too ornery to leave you. That startled a laugh from him. Ornery? Stubborn, hard-headed, determined? She smiled. Turner traits. All. He rose to sit beside her, pulling her against his side. When did you get so wise? Somewhere between the wedding and now. Clara yawned. Wisdom is exhausting. Turner helped her settle into bed, then lay beside her, his hand finding its customary place over their child. It was a nightly ritual now, falling asleep connected, marking another day of choosing each other. I never thanked Thomas, Clara said into the darkness. For dying. The words sounded harsh, but she pressed on. That's awful to say, but if he'd lived, I'd never have found you, never known what real partnership feels like. Life's strange that way. Turner's voice was thoughtful. Mary used to say God works in circles, not straight lines. Takes us the long way sometimes to get where we need to be. Clara turned awkwardly to face him. Do you think they know? Thomas and Mary? Do you think they'd approve? I think, Turner said slowly. That love's too rare to waste on what the dead might think. We honor them by living well, by taking care of what they left behind. The baby rolled, a slow wave beneath Clara's skin. Turner smiled, feeling it too. Besides, he added, something tells me Mary would be thrilled. She always said this house needed more chaos. Careful what you wish for. Clara winced as a particularly enthusiastic kick landed on her ribs. This one's going to provide plenty. They lay in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds, wind in the eaves, Moses barking at something in the distance, the settling of the house around them. I love you, Clara said suddenly, needing him to hear it, to know it bone deep. And I love you? Turner pulled her closer. Both of you, all of us, this whole messy, complicated, perfect family. The next morning brought clouds heavy with rain. Clara moved restlessly around the house, unable to settle. Her back ached constantly now, and the baby felt impossibly low. You're nesting, Mary observed, having come to check on her. Seen it enough times. Baby'll be here soon. How soon? Clara paused in reorganizing the already organized pantry. Day or two, I'd guess. Mary smiled. "You've got that look about you." Turner appeared for lunch, took one look at Clara, and announced he wasn't going back out. The fence can wait." He guided her to a chair. "You look ready to pop." "Such sweet words," Clara said dryly, but she was grateful for his presence, for the steady comfort of him nearby. Samuel arrived home from school full of news about a new calf born that morning. He chattered through dinner about the wobbly-legged creature, how it had stood up on its very first try. "Maybe Hope will be like that," he mused. "Strong right away." "Maybe," Clara agreed, though she winced at another sharp pain across her middle. Turner noticed. Of course. His hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. "Soon," his eyes said, "We're ready." That night, she lay wakeful despite exhaustion. The baby was quiet now, as if conserving energy. Clara placed both hands over her belly, memorizing this feeling of carrying life within. "Last few days of just us," she whispered. "You ready to meet everyone? They're all waiting for you." A single kick answered her, gentle but definite. "Ready." Turner stirred beside her, instantly alert. "You okay?" "Yes, just talking to Hope." "Or James." "Definitely Hope." Clara smiled in the darkness. "A girl who'll wrap you around her little finger, like her mother." Turner murmured, already drifting back to sleep. Clara closed her eyes, feeling the truth of it. She had somehow wrapped this good man around her heart, just as he'd wrapped himself around hers. Tomorrow or the next day, their child would join this circle of belonging. But tonight, in the quiet darkness with rain beginning to patter against the windows, Clara simply held tight to the present moment, her husband's warmth beside her, their son safe down the hall, their baby safe within. This was what she'd been looking for all along. She realized, not rescue from debt or shelter from storms, but this, a place to belong, people to belong to, love that chose to stay. The baby shifted one more time, settling low and quiet outside. The spring rain began in earnest, washing the world clean for new beginnings. And Clara Turner smiled, ready at last for whatever tomorrow would bring. The storm hit just as Clara's labor began in earnest. Thunder rolled across the prairie like war drums as she gripped Turner's hand, breathing through another wave of pain. "That's it," Mary coached from her position at Clara's side. "Don't fight it. Work with your body." Turner hadn't left her side for hours, letting Jake and the others handle the ranch. His face was pale but determined, holding her through each contraction. "I'm here," he murmured against her sweat-dampened hair. "Right here with you." Clara wanted to reassure him, but another pain stole her words. The baby was coming fast now, demanding entry into the world with Turner determination. "Can see the head," Mary announced. "Dark hair, lots of it." "Hear that?" Turner's voice shook slightly. "Almost here." Samuel's worried face appeared in the doorway before Jake's wife ushered him away. They'd tried to keep him distracted, but the boy knew something momentous was happening. "Is Mama okay?" His voice drifted back. "She's perfect," Turner called, though his eyes never left Clara's face. "Being braver than any cowboy." Clara laughed weakly. "Cowboys don't do this." "Exactly my point." Lightning illuminated the room as Clara pushed with everything she had. Thunder crashed overhead, drowning her cry as she brought forth new life into the world. "It's a girl!" Mary exclaimed, lifting the squalling infant. "A perfect little girl." Turner's tears fell freely as Mary placed the baby on Clara's chest. The tiny girl was indeed perfect, pink and furious about her dramatic entrance, with a shock of dark hair plastered to her small head. "Hope," Clara whispered, touching the impossibly soft cheek. "Hello, Hope." Turner's hand covered both of theirs, trembling. "She's beautiful. You're beautiful, God. Clara." "No dying." Clara managed, exhausted but triumphant. "We promised. No dying." He agreed, pressing his lips to her forehead. "Just living. All of us." Mary bustled about, tending to the afterbirth and cleanup with practiced efficiency. But Clara barely noticed, lost in counting tiny fingers and toes, in watching Turner's face transform with wonder as Hope grasped his offered finger. "Can I come in now?" Samuel's plaintive voice came from the hallway. "Let him," Clara said, adjusting her nightgown for modesty. The boy crept in cautiously, eyes huge. When he saw the bundle in Clara's arms, his face lit like sunrise. "She's so small." "You were this small once," Turner told him, lifting him carefully onto the bed. "Smaller, even." Samuel studied his sister with serious attention. "Hello, Hope. I'm your brother. I'm going to teach you everything." Hope chose that moment to yawn hugely, making everyone laugh. "Think she's already bored with your lessons?" Turner teased. As the storm passed and dawn broke, the Turner house settled into new rhythms. Hope proved to be an easy baby, nursing well and sleeping in reasonable stretches. Clara recovered quickly, grateful for her body's strength. 3 days after the birth, Judge Harper arrived with the adoption papers. Clara watched from bed as Turner signed his name with firm strokes, legally claiming Hope as his daughter. "Congratulations," the judge said, tucking the documents away. "She's a lucky little girl." "We're the lucky ones," Turner replied, his eyes finding Clara's across the room. Spring moved into summer, and Hope grew round and rosy. She had Clara's delicate features, but Turner's stubborn chin, and Samuel's ability to wrap her around his finger. The ranch prospered. The garden bloomed. And if sometimes Clara caught whispers in town, they seemed to matter less and less. One evening in late July, Clara sat on the porch nursing Hope while Turner and Samuel worked on a new chicken coop. The baby was nearly 4 months old now, alert and curious about everything. "Think she'll be crawling soon," Clara mused. Turner looked up from his hammering. "Better reinforce everything at ground level then. Something tells me this one's going to be trouble. Like her papa. Thought you said she took after you?" Their gentle bickering was interrupted by riders approaching. Clara tensed. Old fears never quite forgotten. But Turner just shaded his eyes. "That's Ben Morrison's boy. Wonder what brings him out." The young man dismounted, hat in hand. "Mr. Turner, got news from town. That Morse fellow, he's been arrested." Turner set down his hammer slowly. "Arrested?" "Yes, sir. Federal marshals came in yesterday. Seems he's been running the same scheme in 3 territories. Illegal interest rates, forged documents, all sorts of nastiness. They say he'll be going to prison for a long while." Clara clutched Hope tighter, hardly daring to believe. "He's really gone?" "Yes, ma'am. And word is, all his contracts are void. Folks are getting their debts cleared, their land restored." The young man grinned. "Thought you'd want to know, given your history with him." After he left, Turner found Clara crying on the porch, Hope fussing at the interruption to her meal. "Hey now," he said, settling beside her. "Those are good tears, I hope. The best tears." Clara leaned into his solid warmth. "It's really over. All of it." "Was over the day you became a Turner," he reminded her. "This just makes it official for everyone else." Hope settled back to nursing, making small, contented sounds. Samuel abandoned the chicken coop to climb into Turner's lap, completing their circle. "Tell us a story, Papa." The boy requested, "What kind of story?" "About how you met Mama and saved her from bad men." Turner chuckled. "Think your Mama saved herself. I just provided transportation. Tell it anyway." So Turner told the story, simplified for young ears but true in its essence. How a brave woman faced down wolves. How a lonely rancher offered shelter. How a boy found a mother and a baby found a home. "And they lived happily ever after?" Samuel prompted at the end. Turner looked at Clara, his eyes full of love and promise. "They lived happily," he agreed. "Ever after is still being written." As summer mellowed into fall, the Turner Ranch became something of a gathering place. Families who'd survived Morse's predations came to visit, to share stories and meals, to admire how Hope had grown. Even Margaret O'Brien arrived one day, bearing a knitted blanket and stammered apologies. "I was wrong," she said simply, "about all of it." Clara accepted the blanket and the apology with grace, though she noticed Turner's satisfied smile when Margaret hurried away. Some bridges, once burned, took time to rebuild. On Hope's 6-month birthday, they held a celebration, the house filled with neighbors and friends, with laughter and music. Clara watched from the kitchen doorway as Turner danced with Hope in his arms, the baby shrieking with delight. "Never thought I'd see him so happy again," Mary commented, joining her. "You've done wonders for this family. We've done wonders for each other," Clara corrected. And it was true. The woman who'd cowered in a cold cabin, alone and afraid, barely existed anymore. In her place stood Clara Turner, wife, mother, partner in all things. That night, after guests had gone and children were abed, Clara, Asai, and Turner sat on the porch watching stars emerge. Hope slept in Clara's arms, milk-drunk and peaceful. "Thank you," Clara said suddenly. "For what?" "For seeing me that night, really seeing me, for offering your name and your bed and your heart." Turner pulled her closer. "Thank you for accepting, for bringing light back to this place." "Elias? I'm pregnant." He went absolutely still. Then, "What?" "About 2 months along. Guess we know your bed works just fine." Turner's whoop of joy woke Hope and brought Samuel to the window, rubbing sleepy eyes. "What's wrong?" the boy called. "Nothing's wrong," Turner called back, his voice thick with emotion. "Everything's perfect. Go back to sleep." Clara laughed as he peppered her face with kisses, Hope squawking between them. "Another baby," he marveled. "Our baby. Ours from the very start." "Ours from the start," Clara agreed, thinking how all of it had been theirs from that first night. Choice and circumstance, sorrow and joy. Debts paid in love rather than coin. 1 year later, spring came again to the prairie. Clara stood in the garden, Hope on her hip and baby James playing in the dirt at her feet. The boy had Turner's gray eyes and Clara's gentle nature, and Samuel's devoted protection. "Mama, look," Samuel called from the chicken coop. "Henrietta laid 2 eggs. Wonderful," Clara called back, shifting Hope to her other hip. The girl was walking now, into everything, exactly the trouble Turner had predicted. Turner appeared from the barn, crossing to sweep James up before he could eat another handful of dirt. "How's my family?" "Filthy," Clara laughed. "Happy? Perfect." He kissed her, mindless of the children between them. "Mrs. Turner, have I told you today? Only 4 times. She interrupted. "You're slipping again." "Can't have that." He leaned close. "I love you. Love this life we've built. Love these babies we're raising. Love—" "Papa's getting mushy again," Samuel announced, making them all laugh. As Clara looked around at her family, not the one she'd planned or expected, but the one she'd chosen and been chosen by, she knew that sometimes the best stories were the ones that grew from the hardest ground. The frontier was a place of second chances, where widows could become wives, where strangers could become family, where love could grow from the ashes of loss. And if occasionally someone mentioned the widow who couldn't pay her debts until a rancher offered his name and his bed, well, that was just another frontier tale. The only difference was, this one was true, and it was theirs. In the distance, thunder rumbled, not threatening now, but promising rain for the crops, life for the land. Clara gathered her family closer, Turner's arm around her shoulders, children safe in their embrace. "Storm coming," Samuel observed. "Let it come," Turner said. "We've weathered worse." And they had. They would weather whatever came next. 2, together. After all, that's what families did. That's what love did. It stood against the storm, offered shelter, and taught hearts to hope again. The Turner Ranch stood solid against the prairie wind, smoke rising from the chimney, laughter spilling from the windows, a place of second chances and stubborn love. where debts were paid in kindness and the future stretched bright as summer wheat. Home. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to From Wild West channel and let me know your thoughts on Clara and Elias's journey. Did their love story touch your heart as much as it touched mine? Share your feelings below.